let's talk about the tight end room because I love this position group going into the spring game next week because I know sort of one thing and really one thing only about this position group for Oregon on offense. And I don't expect there to be a massive difference in how the tight ends have been used because of the personnel that are here compared to the last 2 years with Will Stein as offensive coordinator. But let's start with who is just in the room. You've got Kenyon Sadiq. That's tight end one. There are going to be no questions. There is not a position group battle. There could be a battle for tight end two, which is a position of non-zero importance for the Ducks, who run, I think, as much 12 or 13 personnel, frankly, or 14 personnel they've run before, but 13 personnel is usually as heavy as they go. They have as many of those packages with multiple tight ends as anybody in the country. And in the last couple of years, they've had the guys to do it. Do they again this year? I think so. It's not quite as proven. Last year, you had Terrence Ferguson, a fourth-year starter, Patrick Herbert, who was a class of 20 recruit, 2020, 2019, that sort of range. And then you had Kenyon Sadiq, who was in his second year, and we saw him pop off in the Big Ten championship game with 2 touchdowns. So I think that him sliding into that tight end one role is, again, a traditional career progression for all you people out there who think, well, it's just portal now. It's not like it used to be. There are several examples on this Oregon team, last year's Oregon team, not as many as there used to be, of course, because you do have transfer guys in there. But Sadiq is a very traditional recruiting timeline player. He's pretty highly rated 4-star recruit. He plays a little bit as a true freshman. He plays more as a sophomore, pops at the end of the year. Now he's the lead guy in the room. So you've got him. You've got Jamari Johnson, who's a third-year tight end coming over from Louisville. You've got A.J. Pugliano, Roger Saleapaga, and Vander Plug. Those are all Oregon tight end high school recruits from the last couple of cycles. Vander Plug is the only true freshman in there. So Sadiq being expected to start might be one of the least questionable position group matters to discuss in spring football. I think this is as set in stone. I think this is arguably more set in stone than Dante Moore starting. That's how surefire of a deal that Kenyon Sadiq is there. And I feel really confident Dante Moore will wind up being Oregon's starting quarterback. I would place a higher degree of confidence that Kenyon Sadiq is tight end one. So I don't think there are any questions, debates, concerns, or whatnot. It's either Will Stein or Drew Maringer said recently that, he's up to 250 pounds. So that is only going to increase his blocking capabilities, and he's still topping out at 22.5 miles an hour. He just doesn't move like everybody else. He really doesn't. There's never been a tight end like him. Last time I brought him up on the show, someone reached out and said, hey, what about Colt Lyerla? Well, Lyerla, really unfortunate end to his career, but Lyerla was a freak of nature, no doubt. He wasn't hurdling guys on the perimeter and able to basically line up like a wide receiver. He was just a freakish tight end who was also a really good blocker. Sadiq, I think, was a really good blocker last year. If you watch a lot of the plays where he was in there, he could move guys around. He put Abdul Carter on his backside one time. Like, dude's got the blocking chops. I'm not worried about that. I wonder statistically what he puts up compared to what Terrence Ferguson did the last couple of years in this offense. I think Sadiq has more potential because he can give you even more yards after the catch. But I just am really, really excited to watch him in not just the spring game, but especially the season, and just see him kind of embrace that role. The other names to watch that I mentioned, let's start with Jamari Johnson. So he is a third-year player, and he is, not someone that played a bunch while at Louisville, redshirted his first year, and then last season played a little bit, 174 snaps. Didn't actually have great blocking grades, according to Pro Football Focus, but when you're not playing a major role, how much work can you really get in there? But this is why I say this position group is so clear at the top, more than arguably any other spot on the roster, because Sadiq is easily the most proven guy who also happens to have the most upside in there. So I think Jamari Johnson is probably someone they brought in to be tight end number 2. My confidence interval 1 to 10 is like a 4.5 that he's locked into tight end 2. I think it could be Roger Saliapaga. So this group going into the spring game next week, hopefully all those guys are going to see the field in some capacity. I don't know about Saliapaga. He's coming off of an injury last year. I'm not sure if he's expected to be ready for the spring game and such, which would then turn my attention to AJ Pugliano, who also came in the last class, and then Vander Plug. And Plug is the only true freshman that Oregon brought in this cycle. And, number 13 tight end in the country, top 24/7 player, according to 24/7 Sports, 6'6", 223 pounds. So a little bit lighter than, where Sadiq is right now or where Ferguson's been the last couple of years. But definitely an intriguing prospect. Was a 4-star coming out of high school, someone who Oregon flipped from Washington once upon a time. I think the depth is questionable here. Like this is a spot, the secondary, the receiver room, maybe even the O-line or like the interior of the defensive line. If someone gets dinged up or if you have an injury along the depth chart somewhere, or especially at the top, there are spots where I think this Oregon roster can survive that. I don't know that tight end is one of them. Like the importance of Kenyon Sadiq staying on the field start to finish this fall, I think is pretty paramount, because you would not just be without a weapon. You might be a significant weapon that Oregon, found a way to use in a great capacity, I thought, a season ago. I think Will Stein will continue to build on that with Sadiq getting involved with screens, pop passes, fly sweeps, downfield shots, whatever. He just does everything. He's a heck of a football player. But if he were to go down, I would suddenly look at tight end and say, I don't know what you're getting. I haven't seen Jamari Johnson be relied upon to be tight end 1. I haven't seen any sort of action required from AJ Pugliano, or obviously Vander Plug, a true freshman, or even Roger Saliapaga for that matter. So potential talent, sure, solid. Overall, going into the spring game next week, I give this room a C+, just because now, again, I'm a pretty harsh grader, where C is average. I say slightly above average with a C+ here because of Sadiq's upside, but the depth, I feel okay. I feel okay about it right now. And Ducks or Tie-Dye sent in this question about the tight end room, saying, would love an opinion on Jamari Johnson's performance thus far and thoughts on Sadiq and Jamari pairing up on the field. I think those will be the top 2 guys. No one knows how they've performed or if they've performed so far, because we haven't seen anything. We'll have to wait for the spring game to get more of an answer on that. But I think for these 2, and again, it could be those 2. It could not be those 2. This is a position group that saw some depth chart fluctuation a year ago. Like, I was correct with my take last season that by the end of the year, I felt, hey, I think Sadiq's going to be past Herbert on the depth chart by the time the end of the year rolls around. I was correct about that. You could see some movement here. Jamari Johnson could start being the number 2 tight end, but if Saliapaga comes back and, in the limited action we saw from him last year, thought he looked pretty darn good, maybe he's someone that can fly up going into his second season. So plenty of questions here. Overall, I gave the room a C+, but that's solely based on Kenyon Sadiq. I think this could be, we'll see what they look like in the spring game, a below average group if Kenyon Sadiq were to get hurt. Hopefully, though, that doesn't happen and everybody can grow a little bit as Sadiq thrives as tight end 1.